Psalms of Ascent are 120 through 134. 15 Psalms.
Okay.
And they start with Shir HaMa'alot. One of them is, the first one, Shir LeMa'alot, which is a little different. But they're songs of ascent, and people talk about them being different things. They could be the steps. I heard somebody say that recently. But generally, it's understood that these are the psalms that the pilgrims sang on the way to Jerusalem to a festival.
All right.
So they're going up, and then they select these particular songs to be the ones. Now, they're a little different. And for example, listen to this psalm. I mean, and you'll see why it's a little different. And you're like, because then you have to ask the question, why do they pick these psalms? This one says, Shir HaMa'alot LeDavid, Adonai lo gava levi, Walo ramo ane, Walo hilakti begedolot.
I don't understand that.
Okay. A song of ascent of David.
Okay.
O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. There's some translation possibilities in there, but that's fine. We'll just go with that. I do not occupy myself or I do not walk. My thing isn't working. Yeah, I do not walk in great and marvelous from me. Too marvelous or too great for me. I do not walk in. So that's sort of how you would say it in Hebrew.
Now, which psalm is this?
131. It's only 3 verses.
Oh, okay.
But I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord from this time forth and forevermore.
That is a really short one.
Very short. And you're asking the question, why do they put this in the Songs of Ascent?
My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me, but I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore.
I don't think I'm content. I wouldn't say it that way. Ali nafshi is my soul within me. Content.
Yeah, this one just says content.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that. And you should, I mean, the one thing about this passage is you're dealing with your child who's not weaned. Which means, because I come back to this, I worked on this a lot, but recently I just read it to him like, that's getting bigger.
Yeah.
Do you know, like I'm seeing more and I'm understanding it better and taking it further. So what does it mean that a child's not weaned?
Usually it's regards to like breastfeeding or the bottle.
Mm-hmm. And what does it mean when it's weaned?
It's not on the bottle, or maybe, I guess, on its own, you could think.
So what does a child do that, as you're going to learn very shortly, what is the difference between a weaned child and a not weaned child?
Well, if I'm like a weaned child, I am content. What did you say? It was a different translation?
But I have calmed and quieted my soul.
I have to think about that one.
And like a weaned child with its mother, like a weaned child is my soul within me.
Because right now he's not weaned, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's whiny and wants his bottle. And
right. So he doesn't know.
he doesn't know what else could be? Or what
I
do you
mean, one, he grew up, obviously, since birth, that says if I'm in need of something, I cry.
Yeah.
Right? I do something like that. I mean, that's communication to a kid.
Yep.
But you're learning communication. You're learning something else. What?
I don't know.
Okay.
Being content. So if I'm hungry, I don't have to whine. Mom's going to take care of me.
Read the last verse.
Put your hope in the Lord both now and forevermore. So a weaned child is like unknown. I'm hungry, I need to whine, or, and a weaned child is content because they know they're taken care of.
Put your trust in the Lord.
And
they put their trust in their mother, right? Or father. Right? In this case, father can actually do it.
Yep.
But in other words, they have pangs of hunger or something comes along and they don't just start crying and demand to get a bottle or whatever the case is at the time, or get the breast or whatever the case is. So, and it ends with this other passage, "O Israel, hope in the Lord."
Yeah.
Which is the picture of weanedness, right?
Yeah.
Hope, and you trust and you depend and you know that you can hope in the Lord, and just because you feel this or that, you don't have to whine about it.
Or worry.
Right. Now, it helps because we also talked about, and I'm going to do something. Well, it's what brought me around. Well, I don't know if it's what brought me around to it, but I came around to this because I was talking about this and I got to the place of what does it mean for me to be like a weaned child? I have calmed and quieted my soul. Or more importantly, what does it mean to be not weaned as a person?
Yeah.
With God.
Understanding both sides.
Yeah? Because now we have the picture of what a child is like. But he's saying, I am like, David there is saying this, I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother.
So how do we get to that place? And where
What
are we
is it?
if we aren't there?
Right.
What is that?
What is that place? Not only how do we get there, but what is that place?
You got ideas?
Yes.
Why
But
don't
I've been
you
thinking
tell
about it
us?
a long time.
I've been thinking about it for 5 minutes.
Right. But I've been thinking about today particularly, and I've come further. That's the point. I thought about it for ages. I read these all the time. And yet, I hear it now where I'm like, oh, let me give you a piece that you gave me. Jesus said to the woman at the well, anyone who drinks this water will never thirst again.
Similar thing.
I think it is. I think it's touching on the same topics. Because my thirst is
There's that a longing or a want for more, right?
like food.
Yep. And there isn't a wanting for more because you're calm and present with the Lord.
There's a difference between my natural passions controlling me
Oh, you could go there.
versus
Yeah.
I'm really not in want because God is meeting me and I don't have to respond to my little inclinations over here or inclinations over here.
Yeah.
There's other words for that.
That's also an interesting take because, a child that's not weaned is solely reliant on whatever is natural.
And he goes after it. He gets a feeling, he starts crying to get that. The Israelites going across the wilderness and they're hungry or they're thirsty and they're like, oh, God, give it to us. Or we have the woman at the well who was drinking from the wells of relationships, right? Mm-hmm. What she wanted. And so she saw it and she would go after that. And that's the context for this water.
And it didn't fulfill. So you keep trying again. And all she knew was getting married again, or however that looked.
Right. Now let's read the first verse with these verses and see how it works. Because what we're doing is we're saying, how does this passage work? Mm-hmm. You know, what is it talking about? And what is it? You see, the reason I get excited about it is because I get excited about it. I also get like, oh, God. Because it starts to hit home. God's talking.
Yeah.
God said this to me. I swear it. He said, Joel, I want you to be weaned. I'm like,
what does that mean? No.
But I love it. I mean, I pretend to act that way, or I still do but it's really good when God talks. And, but it says, "O Lord," a Song of Assent of David. That's, by the way, part of the psalm. "O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me." Now we have to wrestle with that. It's a hard one, right?
Yeah. Because you could go, well, are you not trying in life then? Right? Because it's good to do hard things. It's good to, shoot for the stars, right?
Right. So just take that verse out. It's not part of the Bible. I'm just kidding. But you can't do that because the text is a master, right? That's what we mean. Mm-hmm. So you're coming back and saying, well, I don't think that it means that, David sought to become king. He did a bunch of other things. He wanted to build a temple, all kinds of things like that. So, and none of that was sinful on his part or wrong or inappropriate.
What I hear is like more so things that are out of my control. Like I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me.
Right.
And it's like, okay, if they're too wonderful for me, is he saying, or for him, is he saying that it's things the Lord can take care of? And is it something that may be out of his control? And so they're greater than me because I can't control them. Right.
Or they're beyond me. They're more powerful than me. Something like that.
Bad things happen, right? People get sick. People, those types of things. It's like, I can't really do anything.
Right.
To change some of those things. So I rely on you.
And I bring it down to also the, look at the woman at the well. Because I think I'm wrestling with that particular image because I talk about being weaned means those passions, desires, longings, whatever they are, which come in all kinds of different forms. I need to be someone who stills and quiets my soul so that they don't control me. So that I can feel them, but I don't respond to them. That's what a child does with his mother. When it's weaned, it can wait till dinner time.
Yep.
Thank God. And that's what we become. As we become adults, we become weaned. That is, especially as spiritual adults, or with God, usually like using that word. But we become somebody who depends, who trusts, who hopes in the Lord. And I know he comes through. I just live it. Therefore, it's not only hopes in the Lord from this time forth and forevermore. In other words, I've got this calm and quiet spirit, stilled, and so that I wait, and I know to wait on him, and I don't jump, and I don't succumb to temptations of greed or anger or whatever's coming up. The myriads of temptations that come our way, and those things that grab you, and they grab different people in different ways. But that's why he doesn't tell us exactly what it is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
but he goes back. And this is, by the way, a Psalm of Ascent. So here's these people going up to Jerusalem, listening to David. We have two contexts.
So explain that though, real quick. The Song of Ascent.
Song of Ascent. Remember, they're coming up to Jerusalem. That's why it's Ascent.
Okay.
And so they came together and they would sing these songs. This is my understanding of what happens. I think I'm right. They would sing these songs, of course. They learned the lessons of these songs. You can read them all in those places. You know, Psalm 133 is the one about brotherhood, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. Well, you can see the need for that in that context.
You alluded to why, like asking the question, why did they include this in the Song of Ascent? So are you saying that there were probably more that they sang?
There's 15.
No, but I mean,
No, these 15 are the chosen ones. So they brought those up in the feast and they said, yeah, okay, we're going. Let's sing these songs. And they sang 120, lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help come from? Remember that one? That's a Song of Ascent.
Okay.
You know,
so you're not talking they included it in the Bible. You're saying they included it in the Songs of Ascent that they sang at the time.
Right.
And those
on
are now
this journey to Jerusalem.
Okay.
For a festival.
I wanted to clarify that.
Right.
Because, there was a lot of certain books of the Bible or certain books written that aren't in the Bible.
Right.
So, I guess I'm curious. Are there more Psalms of David that are not in the Bible?
Oh, not that. We actually have a Psalm 151, but it's not in the Bible. It's and there are other songs. I'm sure we actually have some in the Bible in other places.
Oh, okay.
And we have some of the Psalms in other places too.
Oh, from referencing or quoting, right? Or
something like that.
Okay.
But
not trying to like get into that realm of things, but just curious.
And they said, well, that's not good enough. Or God says, no, that's not. Who knows how that happened. But these are the ones that were chosen, and God chose them for this purpose. And so we have these songs of ascent. Mm-hmm. So they're learning this lesson. In this case, they're learning, and that's my question: is what is God trying to teach them? What did David learn? What did these people learn on the way up to Jerusalem? And what do we learn? Mm-hmm. See, I think the issue is I'm learning to hope in the Lord. I'm learning what it means to hope in the Lord, to go throughout my day and say, I'm gonna wait.
There's an acceptance that comes with that too, right? Accepting that the Lord is in control.
Mm-hmm.
And accepting things are out of your control.
Right.
They are too great for me, right?
And some of those things that grab us, I want more money, or I want, whatever.
Fame, fortune, standard things that we all want.
Lust, anger, all those things, the desire, food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But those things where we say, I'm gonna depend upon God. I'm gonna change the way I live. Look at Jesus. He gets tempted. The first temptation is Satan comes to him, and it's funny. I think it's in Luke where he says, and he fasted for 40 days, and after 40 days he was hungry.
Really?
Okay. And Satan comes along and says, turn these stones into bread.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Because he answers,
says, man does not live on bread alone,
but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Yeah. And in this case, he has calmed and quieted his soul. I mean, that's as close to weaning as we get, right? Because he says, I don't have to, my hunger pain after 40 days of fasting doesn't determine my actions.
Yeah.
So we're probably doing this whole thing, and we didn't even do an introduction for this part.
We didn't. That's okay. I was thinking the same thing right now, and I was like, well,
we'll just put it in the front.
No, why not? We just start it, and thanks for tuning in to Hearing God with Scripture, or Hearing God in Scripture.
Right. We're going to look at another part, but we got into this one, and it's only 3 verses, Psalm 100 and 131, as you've been hearing.
But it's been 20 minutes, so.
Well, I know, and it's good stuff, right? I mean, it's because the issue is, why do you it's broader than just falling into temptation, because it's those things that pull us and that call us and that want us to move and cry out and demand, and you can see the different pictures,
I agree. I think it's temptation doesn't fully describe what this is trying to get us away from, because you're like the time I'm pulled in so many different directions, and the distractions we always talk about, right? Distractions aren't always temptations.
Right.
But they can be things you're filling your life with,
Right,
that aren't necessarily leading you towards God, or are distracting you from this calm acceptance that the Lord is in control.
right. You asked something which is important, but I said, well, first we have to know what it is. But you said, how do we get it? Oops. There. My heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. He's making a decision and he's choosing. So he has something to do with this happening. I have calmed. I do not occupy myself with things too great to wonder. Yeah. I have calmed and quieted my soul. He's clearly taking a part in that. So it's not just God doing it to him, but he is, I mean, if we talk about it, he's agreeing. And in this case, if we're looking at the text, it says, that's what I did. And he defines it in that third verse, right? O Israel, hope in the Lord.
Well, the last verse.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too. He says, but I have calm and quieted my soul. And he says, I am. So he changes tense there. So almost because he has calmed and quieted himself, he can be like a weaned child.
Right.
Like
it doesn't actually say that. That's why mine says a little different. It says, Imlo, which is but I, or therefore I, whatever, have calmed and quieted my soul, ke gamul, as a weaned child.
Oh, okay.
With its mother, upon its mother.
Got it.
So your has says I am like, but
it just
tenses. Just says as a weaned child, or like a weaned child. Like a weaned child is my soul within me, which I appreciate this version. Did I?
Are you going to go off on a tangent?
Yeah, because I'm getting to go back. Regent is doing a. Did you hear this?
No.
Because I don't know if my wife told you, but
are you allowed to say names in schools?
Yeah. Regent University. That's where I got my doctorate. That's where I'm teaching. I got a letter from Dr. Becker, the dean, and he asked me, I don't know who else because it wasn't in the letter who's there, but he's putting together a team that's going to come back because they're doing a translation of the Bible.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm going to go back not as a translator, but as a reader, whatever they call it, to go over it. And they're going we have to go back there a couple of days in the end of March, and they're going to fly us back. But
that's exciting.
I love it for this reason. This is what brought it up, because this is what I like about and English Standard Version does pretty well with this. This is part of where I wish we could grasp the parts that King James does well, which is along this line. You see the difference between your version and mine?
Yes.
Yours added something which I don't think needs to be added.
Yeah.
Because it's not in the text. I'm
struggling with that every time we sit down and do this.
Right, and that's what my biggest contribution ought to come along those lines, because what we get is how do we read the text as close as we can to what the author's trying to get us to read? And that's why I'm excited about that project, being a part of this Bible translation. So cool. I'll tell you more about it as I know, but really cool. I mean, it's up my alley, and Becker knows me, so
that'll be fun. That's really
leave
exciting.
that alone.
Yeah,
but every time I go back, he says, it's really quiet around here since you left.
Well, yeah. If you guys haven't noticed, he does a lot of the talking.
But here, you even read it, it's a little different, and it affects you a little bit differently. And that's what I think is important about the text.
It does.
I know you get frustrated. Don't get too frustrated. They did the best they could, and yeah.
It's not too frustrating, but it's when I guess it feels like a hiccup in me trying to study how to read, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's like this slight hiccup of I'm trying to study the text as close as possible so that I can get what I think the Lord is trying to say.
Right.
And when you add things, like that, it could take me in a different direction.
Right. It doesn't really do much there different. And here's the thing. You're going to find all kinds of things along that line, including translation, but other things as well that you discover, oh, that's where it comes from. Oh, that's the context. I didn't know. Mm-hmm. But you just add on to it. That's what you're going to do the rest of your life.
Constantly reading, constantly seeking.
And constantly understanding and knowing more.
Yeah.
Right? Like I said, I've read this forever. Well, now you know it. When you think of a weaned child, you're going to come here and think, oh, I learned a lot about that. Yeah. And the more important, this is what I love about this, and this is the great part about getting together. We talk about it together.
Yeah.
That's what writing does also. But more important than writing and then talking about that kind of stuff where we wrestle through it a little bit.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing.
Right.
I love it.
And the goal is saying, God, come and talk to us. Because we don't just want to wrestle through it for some knowledge's sake. We want to be more like Jesus. Mm-hmm. So when the Satan takes me out and I'm starving and he says, hey, make turn these stones into bread. I mean, he would say something a little different from me because for other reasons, it's a long story. But I don't respond.
Yeah.
I don't let my feelings dictate my actions. I want to be like that. On the road driving, if somebody cuts me off, I don't want my feelings to dictate my actions. When I'm in the, all kinds of situations, my wife says something, or I need to treat my wife well, and I feel like going to do my own thing. I don't want my feelings to dictate my actions.
Yeah.
You name it.
Well, and that's where setting yourself up for success helps, right? Putting on the armor of God.
Right. Calming and quieting your soul in this case.
If you're practicing that, right? It's just like sports, just like anything.
Right.
The more you practice. So what does that look like? See, that would be like, okay, applying it to myself. How can I practice that so that when I get into situations, it's not a second thought. It's second nature.
Right. And I heard someone say this about Jesus on the cross once. He says, when he says, God, forgive them, if I don't know what they're doing. That's his nature.
Yeah. His nature is.
I mean, like we'd be like, you, God, get him.
Yeah.
When he's like, forgive them. And he lived that way, so it was different for him than us. But in this case, I think the issue of like a weaned child is a good picture for us, because how do you wean a child? I think you're right. They have to learn, and they have to go through that process where they cry and they don't get.
Think of Ollie right now. He's doing solids and the bottle, right? So he's learning food. He's intrigued by it. And okay, but it's hard when your kid doesn't show any curiosity for food.
Right.
Because there's, right? And so how do we practice that?
Well, think about what's going to happen. It's not just food that he needs to be weaned from. That's what the passage is about. The food is the breast milk that's the teaching agent, but it's going to be his life all over the place. Mm-hmm. How can you learn to trust God for this and that and this and that? And trust God's not just saying, well, I'm not going to worry about it. No, it's trusting God.
Yeah.
I'd be stupid and not worry about things and they'd fall apart. But I hope,
like I always said, you can trust the Lord, but if you're not moving forward, he can't really help you.
Right. And it depends what God wants you to do, of course, in that case.
True.
But You actively trust the Lord in the sense of, I'm going to follow you, obey you, and not go after my own way.
Yeah.
You know, everybody quotes the passage, which sort of annoys me a little bit, but I'm going to quote it. Do not lean on your own understanding. And maybe that's even a little further than I wanted to go, because I'm like, don't just do your own thing. Don't head your own way. Go God's way. And you see Jesus, and he's in the Garden of Gethsemane where he says, if there's any way to take this from me, but not my will,
but your will.
He's calmed and quieted his soul so much that he's up against death, and worse than death, the putting of sin upon him. And he says, but I won't follow my own way. I won't let my feelings and desires dictate my actions. And he says to us, if you do not hate your father or mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, even your own life, you can't be my disciples. That's this passage, isn't it?
That's another one I'd like to pick apart.
Yeah.
The hate in there, but
Right, but you see it here, and people say, well, it means love less. Don't cheapen it by saying that kind of stuff, because it doesn't say love less. But
there's an absolute to it, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Because love less is okay.
Yeah. If it said that, then you could define it that way, but it doesn't say that.
Correct.
Right. But I get to, and I think this is a part where we even talk about it, and we help each other do this, where we say, I need to calm and quiet my soul. I want to settle down. I want to recognize those hunger pangs.
That's the other thing too, is you have to recognize that. If you don't recognize it, it takes you.
Right. Because you automatically do it. You're in a habit. So you say, oh, I want chocolate chip cookies.
Yep. Mine's just chocolate chips from the freezer.
There we go. Yeah, no cookies. But in this case where you say, recognize those things.
And figuring out how to practice that. Because it's just like playing sports and practicing versus a game, right?
Right.
And even our ping pong, right? The difference between when we practice before playing each other versus when we just go to play each other.
Right.
It's different.
And prayer is a big deal. It reminds me, when I was playing soccer in college, we went out, and I remember this one time I was learning to visualize situations, and we'd practice these things in, I watch Premier League, and I'm like, man, it would be fun to play again. But I'm an old man, I break. But in college I played soccer, and I remember I was a sweeper and the last person in defense. At halftime I'd come out with a broom. No, I'm just kidding. But and I learned, and I remember this one specific situation. I said, well, what if it's a breakaway and there's two people come on me? One, what do? Well, I got to get in between them and keep it from being passed to the other person, and then take that guy into the corner. Well, then there was a breakaway, and the next game, and I was thinking about it before this game, and there's a breakaway. And we practiced it, we learned it from the coach, we talked about it, all that stuff. But it happened, and there's a breakaway, and this one guy and these two other guys, it was 3-on-1. And the goalie,
Yeah.
But, and I laughed.
Like, I know how to do this.
I did. I said, whoa. Hey, I know what to do here.
Yeah.
And I took the guy down, brought him into the corner with the ball. He tried to shoot. I took away from him, took it up the field. And I was like, it worked.
But that's the type of thing we need to set up and not forget about practicing in our spiritual life.
Right. It's the sort of thing we need to talk about too. See, that's the beauty of testimony, where God delivers me from sin, which means I fell into it, but God saved me, or temptation, that is, I was going to fall in, but I didn't. God saved me from going there. Yeah. And we talk about it so that other people say, I'm struggling with that. I need to hear that. Or we might be in the midst of it, or we say, I'm struggling right now because I know I want to, whatever.
XYZ.
Yeah. And the XYZ is important, because I could say specific things, and I would, and we need to in those settings. But here we're saying there's a gamut of stuff, and we deal with them differently.
Yes.
And my job is to get calm and quiet and learn. And we learn together. It's community. Remember, this is Psalms of Assent. These guys are doing it together going up toward Jerusalem.
That is also a good point.
And they remind each other. And you do it, and you're including God. It's to God as a prayer. It's sung. Look at all those things that are part of this. And yet we get a chance to help each other and then to choose and to do it. To calm and quiet our souls. Well, we got our homework.
Yeah. This one started out as let's just kind of, let's touch on it real quick to, what are we at? We're at 35 minutes.
Yeah. I know. And it's heartfelt for me. Good stuff.
It was a good reminder for me, definitely, especially with we've talked about with the so many things I have going on right now.
Right.
How do I practice quieting my soul so that when things arise that are out of my control, I can be calm,
and you can hope in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds great.
We got our work cut out. This is just the beginning. This is just talking about the work.
Well, thanks for joining that one. Appreciate you just jumping into our conversation.
Right. The surprise that this is actually what we're going to talk about. We were going to talk about, I think it's Exodus 23, but 22, 23, one of them. But anyway, we'll go with this one.
Sounds good.
All right.
Well,